It's all about the love of money and man playing God, of course. In the latest American Medical Association Journal of Ethics, authors are not only suggesting uterus transplants to help transgender women, aka men, get pregnant, but they also say taxpayers should help fund the procedures, which can cost up to $300,000. No, thank you. In plain language, the discussion is now about doing uterus transplants so biological men can try to have a baby. So be honest, who saw this coming? I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. Do you think they're suggesting these cross-sex procedures to save lives and help people, or are they affirming people's delusions to rake in the big bucks? Also, just because we have the modern technology to do something, does that mean we should do it? When man tries to replace God, it will not end well. My suggestion, let's make Frankenstein science fiction again. The American Medical Association featured an ethical analysis of uterus transplants for males in its journal this summer, and detailed arguments behind such experiments. Procedures. But worse is the idea that we should help pay for these procedures. Taxpayer dollars, it's for science, it's progress. After all, they have medical in their name. Responding to the news, Dr. Martin Macari, professor at Johns Hopkins University, or Johns Hopkins Schools of Medicine, said this: rather than funding objective medical studies on transgender medicine, the AMA has chosen activist positions on this delicate topic. Why don't they fund a study on the 10-year regret rate of children who undergo transitioning surgery? What is the suicide rate among those who undergo aggressive hormone or surgical treatment versus long-term talk therapy? The doctor also pointed out the irony that the AMA is promoting uterus transplants for men so a baby could possibly be born, while other so-called treatments for transgender children and minors are making them permanently infertile. Whatever happened to do no harm? This seems like partisan activism to me as well. They also discussed reducing the cost of dangerous surgeries in the AMA June issue called Patient-Centered Transgender Surgical Care. But my question is, why reduce the cost if the government can make the people pay for it? Another question is, will insurance companies cover these procedures, and to what extent? There is no good, moral, ethical, or medical reason why American citizens should be forced to pay for these operations. None. Medical, health, or otherwise. And yet, the paper says taxpayers should also fund cosmetic surgeries so men can look or feel more like women. This is where we are today, friends. This is not about affirming. It's not just about supporting them or about live and let live. This is more deception and programming of a nation on transgender ideology. The philosophy that justifies mutilating human bodies is a direct assault on the truth that every human being is created in the image of God. I've said that before. The Bible warns us not to be deceived or taken captive by worldly philosophies. Colossians 2, verse 8. But we're talking about the medical profession here. Science, right? They're supposed to be objective. There are no good, or that I've seen, long-term studies on the effects of injecting hormones into children. Most cases of sex change regret, where people have spoken out to warn others, have been suppressed and censored by the one-party, big tech media conglomerate. The left won't fund those studies or allow these kinds of tragic stories to be told. Dr. Macari also said it's hard to do further research because activists have already run a lot of the medical professionals out of town for wanting to be objective. He's also disgusted, like most of us are, that the minors can walk into a Planned Parenthood and walk out with a bottle of hormones, just like that. I don't think the abortion giant would support experimental surgery to enable someone to have a baby. They're about eliminating life. But the first uterus transplant was actually done in 2014 in Sweden. Now, on the record, there have been about 100 uterus transplant surgeries performed worldwide, and the process involves multiple surgeries and follow-up appointments. It can take, on average, over, a year and a half, about 18 months. Just this year, doctors at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB, became one of the first in the U.S. to offer the uterus transplant procedure to hysterectomy patients, as well as rare cases in which a woman was born without a womb. Its uterus transplant program is one of only 4 in the country that performs the new operation and is the first to do it outside of a clinical trial. Now, one example, a mother had been diagnosed with a rare condition that caused her to be born without a uterus, and they did the procedure. And in May of this year, a baby boy became the first to be born because of UAB's program. Now, the debate will continue, and the public must be convinced and programmed a bit more to be on board with this so-called progress to help the transgender community. But I don't think the idea of taxpayers helping fund it will ever gain popularity. But as we know, some will find ways to make money from the medical health crisis regardless. For example, Chris Rufo at City Journal just wrote about the disturbing story of one doctor that has been doing non-binary genital surgeries since 2015. Business is booming for Dr. Curtis Crane, who employs 5 doctors and does more than 1,000 procedures a year in San Francisco, California, and in Austin, Texas, clinics. Demand is increasing. Safety and sanity are not. Rufo rightly states that those who suffer from serious emotional or mental health issues should not be subjected to these experiments. Crane justifies them by appealing to equality and acceptance and rejects the laws of nature and nature's God. But there is a glimmer of hope and a bit of positive news. Rufo said this: the debate about transgender medicine is shifting. Legislators in 20 states have recently passed bills to restrict transgender medical interventions such as puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and genital surgeries for minors. And the tide of public opinion appears to be moving against, quote, gender-affirming care, a euphemism for child sex change procedures not supported by the evidence and that often cause devastating consequences. Preventing such procedures for patients under age 18 has to be the baseline. So once again, I can sum up this battle in 3 words: God or man. This is a worldview war. God bless you, and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.